The Israeli Prime Minister has ordered the country's withdrawal from the UN's Culture and Heritage Organisation, UNESCO. It follows a similar move announced by the United States in October over a perceived bias against Israel. Here's how that country's envoy to the agency explained the decision.
UNESCO has broken records of hypocrisy, incitement and lies against Israel and the Jewish people, while polluting its noble core principles with politicization and diplomatic terrorism that sometimes bordered on anti-Semitism.
Well, with more now on Israel's move, here's Maupin.
Comes on the heels of quite a bit of criticism from the United States and Israel of UNESCO's activities. Now, UNESCO is the UN's cultural agency. Now, the Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesperson specifically cited what he called attempts to disconnect the history of Jewish history from the land of Israel. UNESCO has angered Israel over the past year. They passed resolutions in which they said that Israel has no right to Jerusalem. They said that the Temple Mount and the Old City are both Muslim holy sites. Now, as far back as 2011, UNESCO actually granted Palestine full membership in its organization. Now, this is Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. This is him touching on the recent decision.
No UNESCO declaration, no empty speeches, no General Assembly resolution will ever drive us from Jerusalem.
Recently, we saw that the USA had withdrawn from UNESCO. That happened in October. And when the United States pulled out of UNESCO, they specifically cited what they called an anti-Israel bias. Now, when that happened, Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, called it a courageous and moral decision and praised the United States for doing that. UNESCO, it stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It has a number of tasks. It fights violent extremism around the world. It promotes female education. It promotes media freedom. It also protects certain cultural sites around the world. Now, what is in question at the moment is what will happen to certain cultural sites now that both the United States and Israel are no longer participants in this very important international body.
That was Maupin. Well, UNESCO does list World Heritage Sites across Israel, comprising of a dozen places representing 3,000 years of history. Israeli newspaper columnist Amir Oren believes UNESCO is also a platform for diplomatic action and that Israel may eventually reverse its decision.
Every UN agency is a battlefield in the foreign policy and diplomacy arena. And UNESCO is no different than the Human Rights Council and others. But whether or not Israel should withdraw from it is another matter altogether, because just withdrawing, just leaving the field to others is not acceptable to many Israelis. We have been through such cycles of UN bashing. Eventually, Israel and presumably the United States, too, would come back having symbolized their displeasure. It is just a gesture. One shouldn't read too much into it.